Joe. This is Laura Topping calling, and I want to tell you about the first time I remembered you. Your parents and you were invited for a meal at my parents' home, and you ate black olives. I didn't imagine anyone would eat those things, but you ate a lot of them. Other thing that I remember, I marched behind you in the Charlotte Concert Marching Band, and you were always trying to flip the little skirts of the twirlers with the end of your trombone. Sometimes you were successful and sometimes you weren't, but it was a fun time in our history. And have a great happy birthday and many, many more.
Joe invited us up to Missaukee Lake for the 4th of July parade that they had down the main street of Lake City. And I had a friend of mine who had a gorilla outfit, and so I borrowed it from him, and I was going to go up there and ride in the back end of the Tijuana taxi that Joe and I had picked up before that, and Cadillac, and we were going down through it. Joe says, "Well, why don't you drive?" I said, "Well, okay." He said, "I want to holler at the people on the street because I know most of them." That's fine. So he did, and he was hollering at everybody, and he says, I just taught him how to drive." And my young little grandson was in the back seat, and he says, "That's not true." He says, "That's my grandfather, and he drove up here, and he can drive." So anyway, the whole thing was a ball. We had a lot of fun. But the only thing that really bothered me was that they came out with the paper, and on the front page was the picture of us in the Tijuana taxi, and with Joe talking, saying hi to everybody, and I was driving with a gorilla outfit on. And they had a big write-up about how we would have had the outstanding float, and it really kind of bothered me because there was a lot of people spent a lot of time building floats, and here we came up with that, and but spur of the moment decided what to do, and we had a ball, had a great time.
Joe, this is Linda and Ed, wishing you a happy birthday. Many fond memories on the ski trails. Remember, you were always the first one out and the last one back, even closing the lifts as they went. Also many years of fun times at the lake, both at your place and at Dick and Donna's, and New Year's Eve, etc. Sorry we can't be there. We're enjoying Florida, but wish you a happy birthday, many more.
And keep your tips up.
Joe, you chose the right profession as you have a very kind way of greeting people. You are a people person, great personality, lots of humor. I've enjoyed our fun times together. In JC's, we had a lively group. Club reunions, praise Christmas party visits with our classmates at Yates Cottage, and looking up from dinner at Clifford Lake and seeing you stopping in to eat on your way north. You and I have reached the big 9-0. We've had a good run. Let's not race for the hereafter. May God continue by our sides.
Hey Joe, happy birthday. This is Dave. Three things I want to bring to your memory. Remember up at Lake City, we used to go to Christmas Cottage originally, I believe, and one time you were You and I actually learned how to water ski together up there. We taught each other. And one time we were skiing one morning day and you lost your sunglasses. And that night, my dad and I were out fishing and I caught your sunglasses. And that's the truth. If you remember, you had them on the mantle for a long time. A couple other memories up there. One, when Christman's boat engine failed, we had to carry that motor up that big long bluff about, oh God, it seemed like it was 100 feet tall, probably wasn't more than 30 or 40, take it into Cadillac and get it fixed. It was a big old heavy Mercury. Another thing, remember, after you built your cottage, you and Laurel and Audrey and I and Jeanette went into the Lake City Hotel one night. Or we used to go in there quite regularly, actually, on Saturday night. And coming back late at night, we, as usual, this little red fox would come out to the road and greet us, and we'd roll down the window and talk to him, and everybody thought that was our version of a pink elephant. So.
All right, one of my most memorable things about Uncle Joe, one of our many, many trips up to the cottage when we were all young, was one weekend we'd had a big cookout dinner, steaks or something, and everybody was full and didn't have room for dessert, which was watermelon.
Mm-hmm.
And Uncle Joe grabbed a couple pieces of watermelon and says, "Come with me, we're going to jog down the road and it'll settle all that food and then we'll have lots of room for watermelon."
I'm reminded of the time when Uncle Walt had spiked a watermelon and Joe sat at the bar there eating watermelon all night, evening, and at night there, one of the fellows took him home and dropped him off and rang the doorbell. And Laurel came to the door and she found Joe sitting with in the flower bed, and the broken railing was busted there. And so I'm not sure that Joe probably remembers much about that evening. So the one that I really wanted to mention was up at Masaki Lake, when Garner Vanderstoel was out pulling 3 kids on behind his boat, and Joe was pulling 3 of our kids behind his boat, and the kids decided that it would be fun to have all 6 skiing. And Joe said, "You know, we won't be able to pull those kids all up with one boat." And so he said, "I'll sit on the front of my boat. Dick, you drive my boat, and I'll sit on the front of the boat, and with Garner's tow rope in my hand." And when the kids had all got ready, with all 6, Joe says, "Okay, let's let her go." Garner took off and pulled Joe right off the front of the boat and into the water. And I was just scared to death. And I cut the engine and I waited a little bit. And pretty soon Joe came up and hollered, "I'm okay, I'm okay." And I really felt good about that, because I thought maybe we'd run over Joe and we had an accident there. But everything turned out good, and we did. We skied 6 kids, and they had a ball doing it. We've had a lot of memories over the years at Praise Cottage, and the Tijuana Taxi, and Colorado skiing, and New Year's Eve spent together, and rocking on the front porch during the Frontier Days, and gourmet group, and Joe and I working on Joe's cars to get them to run, and the yacht club meeting, of course, and it certainly is happy to see that Joe is going strong now at 90 years old, and I wish you a real happy birthday, Joe.
happy birthday, Joe. And I would just want to wish you and thank you for all the happy memories.
Happy birthday, Joe. Sorry we couldn't be at your party. Glad you've been a Kiwanian for all these years.
Yeah.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Well, happy birthday, Mr. Prey. I always am very impressed of how you handle yourself at all the Kiwanis meetings in around town. And when we went to CPAC, you would always go in there and always be a smiling face. Love you and a happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Mr. Bray. Just wanted to let you know I always enjoyed your smile and your hug that you gave me whenever we saw each other, be it CPAC or around town. We're wishing you the best wishes and have a very happy birthday, and we love you. Bye-bye.
So have a very, very happy birthday.
Gotta be separate.
Recording right now.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Joe. Happy birthday to you.
Hi, Joe. This is Dave again. Got a couple other items. If you remember, up at the cottage one year, Laurel decided to have ribs one night, and so you put them on the grill, and so we took the Tijuana taxi out onto the island for a quick spin to come back, hopefully before the ribs got too far. Of course, we stopped and chatted with a number of people out there. We got back, the ribs were crispy critters, charcoal basically, and Laurel was so mad. I've only seen her madder than that one time, and that's when we expanded the parking lot at the funeral home a few years ago. And I think both times I was guilty by association. So anyway, Joe, happy birthday. You've been my brother-in-law as long as I've been alive. You've been as part of our family, as much of a brother to me as Art and Jerry were. So again, happy birthday, Joe.
Hello, Mr. Joseph Eugene Prey. I'm here to wish you a happy celebration of your 90th birthday. And I am Sandy Match. And I want to remember back in 1950s, the early 1950s, you but you loaned tables and chairs. And through Job's Daughters, 3 or 4 of we women came down here to pick some up. And you took us downstairs to get them. But before we could go there, he said, "Oh, let me show you some caskets. You might want to be interested in seeing some of them." Well, we were not interested in seeing those at all. In fact, we were very happy to get out of there and just pick the chairs up. And that's just one of the things that you have entertained the community with throughout your years, Joe. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Joe Prey. Jeff Wildern, just remembering all the years that our families have done business and recreation together. Remembering my first death call ride at age 2 when you and Laura were babysitting for me. I don't know as I remember it, but I've been told about it. And all the things you've done in the community, all the weekends at the Saki Lake with the Prey family and the Wildern family, all of the ski trips up to Cabrifay with the Preys and the Wilderns, and you and George being good friends ever since you were children. The two of you active in Kiwanis, responsible for Kiwanis Manor, and all the other community services you've performed with over the years. We appreciate that. And the ski trips to Colorado with you and George and my Uncle Bob, and being the last ones off of the hill. Just a lot of things to remember. And happy 90th birthday from the Wilderns, Joe Prey Sr.
I have a remembrance from Rod Yates, who's one of Joe's oldest and dearest friends. He wasn't able to record his own video, so he sent me the message, and I'll read it through there. This is one of his several memories of times with Joseph Eugene Prey. He says, "Let me set the scene. It was the spring of 1943, 10th grade English class. Teacher, Miss Isham. I, Rod Yates, had purchased a homemade motorbike, and since it was a nice sunny spring day, I rode it to school. The bike had an open chain drive, so my parents had purchased knee-high leather boots to protect my trousers from being caught in the chain drive. Joe Prey was seated next to me in the last row of chairs on one end of the row. I was all by myself in the last row, all the way on the other side of the room. Probably we were seated alphabetically. Class was after lunch, and with the warm day, it was getting hot in the room. I'd pulled my pants over my boots for a better appearance in school, but the warm classroom, my legs were extremely hot. Since I was alone in the back row, I hiked my pants up over my knees for a little relief. About this time, Joe leaned back in his chair, and saw my bare knees above my boots, causing him to exclaim one of his boisterous laughs. We all remember that. Miss Isham, being exasperated, shouted, "Joe Prey, you go to the principal's office." I attempted to be a proper friend, spoke up, and said, "It was not all Joe's fault, as I contributed to the incident." Immediate response, "Rod Yates, you go too." So off the two of us went to Mr. Hines' office, who was also the band director. Joe played trombone, and I played trumpet in the band. When Mr. Hines came to his office and found the two of us sitting there, he said, "What brings you guys here?" We explained that Miss Isham had expelled us from English class. I then explained the circumstances, and Mr. Hines laughed and told us to sit in his office until school was dismissed, then behave ourselves and go back to class tomorrow. This happened almost 75 years ago. Apparently it was a great memory. Rod Yates, co-conspirator. Thanks, Rod.
All right, my story about Joe goes back to Christmas Eve of 1954. And Joe was delivering bottled gas to a home on Cherry Street. That was one of the Prey's businesses at the time, among other things. And he saw this poor lonely bachelor next door and asked him what he was going to be doing for Christmas Eve, and he didn't have any plans. So Joe says, "Well, why don't you go to the country club dance with my wife Laurel and her sister Jeanette can be your date." So of course he said yes, he'd love to do that. And of course we did, and as they say, the rest is all history. Thanks, Joe. Happy birthday.
Hi, Uncle Joe. It's John. Happy birthday. Unbelievable. 90 years old. They asked us to tell a story, and there are countless stories from my childhood that you were a part of. But one stands out, and that is when we would be moving a casket in the basement of the funeral home. You would always instruct us to put your hands on the corners because your hands would heal, the casket wouldn't. So it's always been a good lesson to protect things. So thank you for being a part of our life when we were all growing up, and have a happy birthday.
I've always admired your dad in everything that he's always done, until he tried to outdo me on the dance floor. We were both out there, and I think we were trying to compete against each other, and I think he won because he's a great dancer and he's always participates, and I've always admired him in his professionalism in our business and his humor. I always get a big laugh when I'm around him because he's always knows the right thing to say, and that beautiful smile he always had. I've always enjoyed that. He is a mentor for me, and I want to be like him when I'm 90 because my new mortgage is going to be paid off when I'm 93, and I want to burn it in the parking lot, and I'm sure that he could do that when he reaches 93. Happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Joe!
Dan and I are out of town, but we're sending you happy 90th birthday wishes and thanks for always making us smile.
Joe, we've been traveling with you on vacations for 40 years, and there's one thing that I think you've earned. Since you're 90, I think it's okay now that you can do everything without socks and you can do everything barefoot. It seems like a 90-year-old ought to be able to do that. I'm sure Lori and Joe won't care if you walk around the funeral home barefoot and without socks.
Anders too.
Oh, Anders too. But I can tell you that there's one more thing you need to do as a great grandpa. You need to make sure you teach Andres about beans. Because why? Beans, beans, the musical fruit. The more you eat, the more you toot. The more you toot, the better you feel. So let's have beans for every meal. Happy birthday!
Okay, Joe and I were in Atlanta, coming on down here to Panama City, and I had left all my Kleenex in my coat pocket and left it in the car. So I didn't have a Kleenex, so I asked Joe if he'd get me a Kleenex share. So he saw a bellboy right there and asked him if there were any Kleenex around. And the boy said, sure. He said, I'll go get you one. Okay, so he comes back. He gives Joe this little package that was all very neatly folded. And Joe tried to give him a tip. And he said, no, you don't owe me anything. And we thanked him and he went on and I wanted to blow my nose. And I opened up the little package and here he had gone to ladies' restroom. He'd got me a strip of toilet tissue. He was so proud of that toilet tissue that he gave me, but he was bound. He wasn't going to take anything. So Joe and I have laughed about that ever since because that's the way our relationship is based on making each other happy.
Very good.
Well, the thing I think about when I think about Grandpa Joe, something that makes him uniquely him is that he really enjoys getting to know people and reaching out to strangers, introducing himself, and they enjoy talking to him usually. I think he's just an easy person to talk to because you just get a warm, friendly feeling that he is interested in what you're saying and he's interested in your whole family, and he knows your whole family probably, and he's got stories about it, your whole family. So just growing up, I remember thinking, man, I guess that's what an adult is, somebody who knows everybody and everything about everybody. But now that I'm an adult, I don't think that's necessarily what an adult is. That's just what Grandpa is. I guess it goes back to his days being the Meet Your Neighbor radio show host, where he interviewed people who sometimes they weren't always very voluntary about telling about themselves, but he could get them to open up and get them to share a little bit, because I guess the people just get the feeling that he wants to know, and so people like to tell him stuff. So he's got a lot of stories. Seems like really a lot of the stories I know about him, some of them I was there for, but a lot of them it seems like my favorite stories are not necessarily ones I was there for, but ones that he told about, like when he was younger or something, like like when he was a kid and they used to have a furniture store and they would have a chair that was in the desk or in the front office, and when salesmen would go over too long when they were trying to give him a sales pitch to Myron, Grandpa Joe would go press a button and the chair was actually rigged with low voltage electricity, but enough to make them stand right up out of the chair and wrap up their sales pitch really quick. I remember finding Grandpa Joe's yearbook upstairs in the funeral home from his senior year, and I knew he was an athlete and everything and was kind of a star, but I didn't quite know to what extent he did everything. He was in, track, basketball, and football, and they were like undefeated, it seemed, or league champs or something. He had the record for the quarter or half mile, basically, in Charlotte up until the around 2000, I think. But then when you turn the page, you go to the band section, and he was like first chair trombone, and his picture's right there. He actually said, I asked him about that, he said he may not have necessarily been the best trombone player, but back then they had a vote system, so the students actually elected him first chair. This was more of a popularity contest. And but then there were some other things, like there was a school play, and he was the lead role in the school play. And then there was a quotes page of like the favorite quotes of the year, and one of them was his. There weren't too many, but they picked one of his, and it was he said, like, Coach Goebel, I told Coach Goebel that he'd better let us out of practice in time today, or when I get home, Dad'll give me a licking. I didn't really quite understand what that really, maybe give me a licking wasn't a common phrase back then, but I think people maybe just put him in there because they really like Joe. It probably just goes back to the same thing I was saying before. He's just friendly. People just like him. I guess the last thing about the yearbook was there was 3 pictures in the senior, 3 highlighted pictures in the senior photo section: the valedictorian, the salutatorian, and then Grandma Joe. And I don't know what he had like the designated most outstanding overall person or something. It's just, I don't know, it's just funny. He did everything, I guess. Most of my best stories about Grandpa that I know, I wasn't actually there for, but they're stories that I remember hearing about. But one that I was there for, and I guess I gotta at least tell one, was when I was a kid, I used to be industrious, and Grandma Laurel would give me all sorts of jobs behind the funeral home in the big yard and gardens back there. And my old standby job that I could always go if I needed to make a little extra change to buy a baseball card or something was to go pick up walnuts. And she paid me a penny a walnut. And I would go there most days and fill up a bucket or 2 of walnuts that fell overnight, and then go get Grandma, and we'd count them out and write down a tally. And then on Friday or whatever payday was, she'd pay me in cash. And I really liked the money. I really liked the look of it and the feel of it and the smell of it. Like looking at it and seeing, oh, this one was minted in Georgia. It's printed in 1988 or whatever. And every once in a while she'd give me a $5 bill because I'd have a really good week. And that was really cool because those were rare, Didn't get to see those very much. And then, maybe I had like seen a $10 bill or a $20 bill maybe in like a Christmas present or something. And, those were like legendary. But then this one time, Grandma wasn't around, and I had to go get Grandpa to pay me. He was like next in line at the funeral home in terms of authority. And he, as I'm sitting there doing my math, my 3rd grade math, tallying up my walnuts, he just kind of cuts me short. He's like, will this cover it? And he pulls out a 50. And I don't remember too much from my early days, but I remember that because that was a ground-shattering moment. And Grandpa gave me a $50 bill. That was like a year's worth of income. And it was a 50. I'd never even seen one. Like, who is this guy? Ulysses S. Grant, who's that? And yeah, he was generous.
If I had to choose one thing, I think my favorite thing about Grandpa Joe would be his smile. And he just has such a warm, friendly personality. And when you see him smile, which is most of the time, you can just see that warmth exuding out of him. And even though my own grandparents are no longer living, I've always felt like he's a grandpa to me too. So, and I think a lot of people feel that way. So, Grandpa Joe, I hope you have a wonderful birthday, and we love you.
On this occasion of your 90th birthday, Joe, I have one story I'd like to share. Joe and I were dating. We were all up at Lake City at the cottage. It was a beautiful warm day. We'd been playing outside in the lake, on the beach, and we came in for lunch because Laurel always fixed 3 meals a day, so we had to go in and have lunch. We were sitting around the big oak table having our sandwich and chips, and we were all barefoot, and I had reached my foot out and I was running it up and down Joey's leg. Well, Joey got up from the table to get another glass of milk, and the leg was still there. So I looked up from the table, and here you are. You look at me and you say, "Don't stop." So we've laughed about that story a lot over the years. As far as a personal sentiment, if I had to choose one word to describe you, Joe, I'd use the word devotion. I think about your whole life. You were devoted to your parents. You were devoted to Prey Funeral Home. I mean, to give up a walk-on basketball position at Michigan State University because you needed to come home and help your parents on a weekend, that's devotion. You were devoted to your wife, Laurel, for many, many years, 62, especially watching you care for her in the last 5 years of her life. That's devotion. Your generosity to your children and your grandchildren, which I have been a recipient, and I've watched your generosity to our own boys. You're devoted to us. You've been devoted to your community. You've been devoted to your job. I don't think you call it a job. It's been your life mission. So congratulations to you on all the things that you've given to everybody you love and to people that you hardly know. You're just a super nice man, and I love you very much. Happy birthday.
Hi, Dad. Happy birthday. When we were kids, I always felt really lucky that we lived next door to the funeral home and to Grandma and Grandpa Prey, because although you worked a lot of long and crazy hours, we still got to see you quite a bit. You were always there for us when we needed you, Joey and I. I've always been proud to be Joe Prey's daughter. It seems everybody knows Joe Prey. When I was little, I thought that Grandma Prey knew everybody in Eaton County and what farm they were born on and whose cousin they were married to. Eaton County is a little bit smaller, or is quite a bit different now, quite a bit bigger, but I think you still know an awful lot of people there. When you were in high school, you played trombone in the band, and you marched in the parade in Holland, and you used to tell us about walking around the horse poop. Then it was my turn to be in the band, so you gave me your trombone, and then Joey played cornet. I think you gave us a sense of rhythm when we were little because you would always read us Dr. Seuss over and over. We loved it. With your sing-song, I think that I saw it on Mulberry Street. One of the best things that you and Mom ever did was to build the cottage at Lake Misaki. It was a much-needed escape from the funeral business because it's 24/7 at home. There's no break. So we would get away to the cottage to relax a little bit. Although, when I think about it, Mom was always cooking and doing dishes and going to the laundromat, and you were always working on the boats or on the dock or something. I think the only time you ever sat down was when we had dinner or when we would play cutthroat solitaire, which we all loved. I think your favorite part of being at the cottage is when you go out in the boat and cruise around the lake and see what's happening, what's new, who's here this week. Go stop at a few people's dock and say hello. Of course, you taught us all to water ski, and we loved water skiing. Tyler and Joey and McLean loved it so much that they decided to do away the skis and just barefoot. You've happily welcomed all the additions to our family. First, my husband Mike, and then Joey's wife Lori, our Martha Stewart. And then you became Grandpa Prey. Tyler and McLean came along, and you shared so much with them, and they've learned so much from you. And they still love to spend so much time with you, as much as they can. And then your granddaughters came along, Dana and Sarah, whom you adore. And then McLean and Anders, see, I still do it. Anders came along. He is the light of everybody's life. So I think your family and the funeral home and your service to the people of Charlotte have always been the joy of your life. It's what you get up for every day. And I'm so proud and happy to wish you a happy 90th birthday, Dad. We love you. Happy birthday.
What? Oh. Well, sorry, I was just being lazy, taking a nap down here in Florida. So, Joe, you got a birthday coming up. The big 9-0, huh? Wow. That's like 630 dog years, man. Woof, woof, woof. Okay. Back down to planet Earth. I just wanted to say thank you for being such a great father-in-law. I'm lucky to have become a part of your family. Cue up the chipmunks here. Of all the people I know, you're the one who has a joke for every reason, a smile for every season. You radiate a feeling of happiness to everybody in your presence. Y'all have a terrific birthday and many more to follow. I look forward to giving you a big hug, and I'll see you at the party. Have a good one.
This picture I like to call the no pressure picture. I am the little sailor baby here, and we've got 3 guys in suits all looking very expectantly at me. Now this is my dad Joey, and this is Grandpa Joe, and this is my great grandpa Myron, who died just months after this picture was taken. I see this picture every day here at the funeral home, and it reminds me of the deep heritage that my grandfathers and my dad have set for our family. My grandpa is the most kind-hearted, positive, genuine person that I've ever known, and that is a lot to live up to. And I think of him daily when I'm working with families and out in the community, of how could I demonstrate all the things that he so easily demonstrates day in and day out. His generosity has made a lot of things possible within our family and within the community that otherwise would never have happened without him being there to help and to make us all feel that what we're doing is right. He's a model funeral director, and obviously try to follow his role and all the things that he does for that too, demonstrating patience, compassion, and of course everybody knows his lighthearted spirit. Sometimes that's not always easy to communicate to people or to share with people in a difficult time, but he certainly has it down pat. I'm sure there's lots of stories that have already been shared throughout the years. Hilarious ambulance tales, mysterious funeral home stories, family travels. But I'd like to kind of reflect as his grandson And one way to do that would be, since I'm already at work, to take you on upstairs and show you his office, which I've more or less taken over since he doesn't seem to be using it too much anymore. Let me show you. Welcome to Grandpa Joe's office upstairs at the funeral home. Now I've kind of taken this space over because he hasn't used it, and I apologize for the mess. A lot of it's still his stuff, but most of it's mine now. Come on in. Now I'm sure many people have talked about all the civic things that my grandpa's done, and this room is full of reminders of that. But I would like to reflect on, I think, one of the best things that he ever did for our family, and that was have the courage to build a cottage on Lake Misaki back in 1963. He was a younger man than I am now, a young family and a business that he was responsible for, so I'm sure it was quite an investment on his part to do that. And throughout the years, not only myself and my brother have had childhood memories there, but my dad and my Aunt Terry grew up there as well, so that's 3 generations now that have cherished every minute that we can spend there. As kids, we used to stay there all the time, alternating between my parents and my grandparents would come to watch us. And I loved playing solitaire with my grandpa and grandma, sitting at the table, and my grandpa would be holding his cards and he'd go, "Oh, do-de-do, I got an ace of farts." And my grandma would just like flip out, "Joe, that is not the right word." Anyway, I mean, we had so many he was always so, he would drop his pipe in the water. A couple times he dropped it in, and my grandma got super mad because we fished it out for him. He needs to quit smoking, let that pipe lay in Lake Misaki. But anyways, just so many fun times that we had there. And it'll be in our family forever, and we'll always remember that he's the one that gave that gift to our family, and it will always be close to our hearts. So Grandpa, thank you for doing that. Happy 90th birthday.
Birthday cheers, Grandpa Joe. My favorite memory of you is actually on the dance floor. Over 10 years ago, you asked me to dance at one of the MFDA conventions. I'll never forget that moment. I am so very honored to be a part of your family. I love having your last name. I am proud of the work that you do. I love your generous spirit. I admire the fact that you have dedicated your entire life to serving other people. I'm so proud of you. I wanted Anders to have your name, Joseph Anders Prey. Everyone says that he looks like you. He has your smile. I'm proud of that. And I'm noticing lately he also loves to dance. So, happy birthday.
Happy birthday, Grandpa Joe!
Happy birthday, Dad. 90 years, that's pretty cool. I'm especially proud of being your son because you've always been so generous with us and your family. You've always been so kind and accepting and outgoing to the rest of the community. Tried to emulate that, as Tyler and McLean and all the rest of them do. I think we actually have inherited your gift of gab. The ability to carry on conversation, which has come in handy so many times. Heck, fire! I remember being on vacation. Didn't matter where we were. You always knew somebody, or ran into somebody you knew, or ran into somebody who knew somebody else that you knew, in a conversation, and they'd become fast old friends. I remember one particular vacation we were on. Slightly different type of story, though. I was a little kid. We went out east on spring break. Toured the Washington, D.C., and one day we went to tour Mount Vernon. And it was kind of a rainy day, and you had your trusty pipe. You were smoking your pipe as we were outside. We had on those plastic raincoats. And as we went in to tour the house, Mom says, "You got to leave your pipe out here. You can't smoke in here." So you did what you always do. Took your pipe, put it in your pocket. No problem. Till we got halfway through the house, and I remember the docent standing in one of the rooms saying, the wallpaper in this room is made of leather. Please do not touch the leather wallpaper. I smell smoke.
Do you smell smoke? And about that time, your trusty pipe had melted through the pocket of your jacket, fell on the floor. We all heard it go thud, and you kind of took a couple of steps away, turned around and looked down and says, "Oh my gosh, somebody left a pipe in here. I better take it outside." Mom was pretty disturbed by the fact that you almost burned down Mount Vernon. We all thought it was kind of funny. That happened a lot. Mom would get kind of disturbed about something you did, and Teresa and I, or the kids and I, or Lori and I would think it's kind of funny. But you shared so much with us. I think some of my favorite memories are the cottage, learning how to water ski up there, which we turned into a mild obsession, learning how to barefoot ski later. Putting in the dock, that little 60-foot of wooden dock was so fun to put into you. Had to make it straight, had to make it level, or thereabouts. Maybe that's why that 60-foot of dock has turned into 350 feet, because I had so much fun when I was a kid. The trips back through the woods in the Model A, or the Tijuana Taxi, as I think Dick Johnson referred to it as, bouncing through the old logging trails, taking it into town. I remember you taught us how to smile and wave when you see people. Got to smile and wave. We always thought it was because we were being friendly. And then after I grew up and I was driving my own kids into town in the Tijuana Taxi, I realized it was probably because everybody was staring at us when we drove by. I was like, what the heck is that? I remember one day you drove down, you took off in the Model A, were visiting with folks, and you returned with somebody's brand new Mercury station wagon. And we were all like, what's going on? I was so upset because I thought you traded away the car. And you said, oh, no, I just traded it to so-and-so on the island. You know, he's a Ford exec, and he wanted to take his kids for a ride in our Model A. So I said, I want to take a ride in your brand new Mercury station wagon. So I traded for the day. Luckily, we got it back. You know, the old Model A led to an obsession, or was part of the obsession, with old iron, antique cars. I think we have a pretty good partnership on that. You've bought them, and I've fixed them up and taken care of them. Huh. It's worked out. I love the fact that I share a lot of things with you and share the work at the funeral home. It's great that you still show up at 90 years old every day for work. I hope that we can do just as well as you have. I don't quite have the gift of gab like you do. Close. But we love you. We're proud of you. Can't think of a better life. Happy birthday, Pop.
Happy 90th birthday, Rockaway, and I love you. Bye-bye.